and welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show. I am your host, Adrienne Ross, and you are either watching on YouTube, on the BMG Network's YouTube channel, or you're listening on a major podcast platform. You also may be listening on the BMG Network. I'm very grateful that you have tuned in today. I'm going to jump right into today's episode, which is a rather serious one. We know that for the last year and a half, maybe a little bit more right now, we've been dealing with this coronavirus. And then since then, of course, dealing with all the issues pertaining to the vaccine, which has been a very controversial issue. The vaccine, along with mandates and masks and all the things that we've been hearing and dealing with in our lives, because this is affecting all of us. And I want to talk today about the whistleblower. You're probably familiar with Project Veritas. If not, go to projectveritas.com. And Project Veritas, of course, is either loved for their investigative journalism, you might say, for their campaign for truth. And, there are those, of course, who hate Project Veritas for the very same thing, for the work that they do. And what I'm talking about today is the issue of the vaccine pertaining to Pfizer and the whistleblower, Melissa Strickler. Melissa Strickler is a quality auditor with Pfizer. She's up there. She's been there for 10 years. And she recently learned, you may have heard, about how Pfizer wants to hide and has engaged in hiding the issue of aborted cells being used in the vaccine, in the testing of it, and however else they use it, but certainly in the testing of the vaccine. And through some executive emails, we find that they are strategically hiding this information from the public. They do not want we, the people, we, the public, to know about the aborted cells within the whole vaccine testing, the whole vaccine issue. It's a hidden thing, but it came out. She came out, and one would say, why would someone do that? And I understand that she has since been fired by Pfizer, but she knew, of course, that she was treading on really, really slippery ground. But she feels that this is so important, and she shares that in what I'm going to share with you. Either you'll hear the audio, or you'll actually watch, if you're watching, her interview with Project Veritas. So I'm going to play this audio. I'm going to play the audio and show the video part of it anyway with this interview, so that you can see and or hear for yourself exactly what she's blowing the whistle on, and understand, for someone to put their livelihood on the line, that this is some serious stuff. And if you are pro-life, this should definitely bother you. It's not like we didn't know. I mean, the information is out there about using aborted tissue. Some people perhaps don't know, but for the most part, I'm imagining that people have always heard this. So that's if you're pro-life, but even if you're not, the idea that these high-level executives specifically have stated they do not want the public to know that this is there. They want to hide this. They don't want people exercising religious exemption. So instead of giving all the information and allowing people to choose for themselves, they've decided, you know what? We don't want them to know. But Melissa Strickler said, no, this is not right. And she's not an anti-vaxxer. I mean, she works for Pfizer, and neither am I. I'm not showing this just for that reason, but I have a serious problem with what Pfizer is doing, according to this whistleblower. So let's take a moment or 5 and listen and or watch, and then let's resume our conversation.
I work at a pharmaceutical company. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I just believe in research and science.
Well, in this database, you came across a chain of emails discussing fetal tissue and the COVID vaccine. Vanessa Gelman, who works in Washington, D.C., is Senior Director of Worldwide Research. The question came up as an inquiry to our MedInfo group. They're asking, quote, did Pfizer make use of a cell line from an aborted fetus?
They want you to leave out the highlighted part, which is the one or more cell lines with an origin that can be traced back to human fetal tissue has been used in laboratory tests associated with the vaccine program.
And here we have your badge. You are an employee of Pfizer?
I work at the McPherson, Kansas plant. It's one of the biggest plants in the operation of Pfizer. We produce some of the most units.
This message from Vanessa Gelman.
From the perspective of corporate affairs, we want to avoid having the information on the fetal cell lines floating out there. We believe that the risk of communicating this right now outweighs any potential benefit that we could see, particularly with general members of the public who may take this information and use it in ways we may not want it out there. We have not received any questions from policymakers or media on this issue in the last few weeks, so we want to avoid raising this if possible.
Wow. We believe that the risk of communicating this right now outweighs any potential benefit we could see. They ought to put that on American currency. Philip Dormitzer, Vice President, Chief Scientific Officer. These are not low-level people here. So you're showing us emails between the Vice President of Pfizer, the Senior Director of Worldwide Research, about how to couch it a certain way, because we would not want to tell the people that it can be traced back to human fetal tissue. Copying Vanessa Gelman, we have an approved answer to this question, the question being about fetal tissue, which Vanessa can probably provide, HEK2932. What does that mean, HEK cells?
Human embryo kidney cells, and it was from experiment 293.
They've used cells from aborted fetuses.
Yes,
and
HEK
they don't want the
cells.
public to know that.
Yes.
That's staggering for society because of what you said, religious exemptions.
And they're denying our religious exemptions at Pfizer.
This is serious stuff you're dealing with. These are powerful people and a very powerful company.
They're withholding knowledge on people's approval if they can consent or not.
From Sarah Elizabeth Weiser, the principal scientist.
She's just making sure, just be clear, you would like medical information to reply with the text in red below, including the highlighted section.
Okay.
Thanks again. And then they responded with,
no, I would prefer that we do not use the text in yellow.
They're being so deceptive in their emails, it's almost like it is in the final vaccine. It just made me not trust it.
There was an issue with the FDA, and
I heard something about they're doing some sort of tests in there with lights, but I'm not sure. And I said, in unoccupied rooms and in a group lead office? And he goes, well, the FDA is coming. I could not believe that they were blacking out windows down in our manufacturing rooms. We are told that you should be seen at all times, that we need to make sure that we have high integrity, and the rooms that are like this one where you can see my reflection, it's a group lead office where they just do the paperwork for the batches. So why does that need blacked out?
And why did you decide to come to Project Veritas?
Because I felt it was the right thing to do. I feel like I have no one else to turn to when my own company won't be honest with me. What I was told to do was to trust Project Veritas and to go with you guys, by lawmakers, by lawyers.
Really?
I was really genuinely traumatized and sickened from the things I saw, and I needed to leave there. So I just took a leave of absence so that I could gather my thoughts and really kind of heal from this information.
The extraordinary act of blowing the whistle on the company and publishing emails from their vice president is another step entirely. Are you afraid of doing this?
A little bit. I have faith that I'll be protected, or whatever the outcome is what it's supposed to be. So I'm at peace with it. I'm a little anxious on what they'll do or what they'll say, but it needs to be seen by the people because they're trying to get this to kids. And if they're being this deceptive about it, I don't feel comfortable being silent.
The government doesn't want to show that the darn vaccine is full of shit.
There needs to be a registry of the people who aren't vaccinated. That's sounding very Germany. I'm going to go door to door and stab everyone. Oh, it's just your booster shot.
Don't get the Johnson & Johnson.
I didn't tell you no.
She didn't want to take it because of her religious beliefs. She was coerced into taking
They
it.
are not reported because they want to show it on the map.
I want you to leave out the highlighted part, which is the one or more cell lines with an origin that can be traced back to human fetal tissue has been used in laboratory tests associated with the vaccine program.
Okay, so there you have it for yourself. And if this doesn't concern you, I don't know what will. I mean, there's much to be concerned about in this whole issue with the virus, with the mandates, with government overreach. There's a lot to be concerned about. But this should certainly concern us. Here, this is what it reminds me of, and it's along the same lines of abortion. And that is, you find organizations such as Planned Parenthood, for example, that specifically try to keep people from having all the information. Planned Parenthood pushes abortion. That's what it does. That's where it gets its money, and unfortunately, the government funds that. But I'm thinking, if you care about people, if you truly care about people, whether you're pro-life or pro-abortion or pro-choice, whatever term you choose to use there, you should not be against people having all the information. And then, you say you're pro-choice, for example, then give the information and then let people choose. But even these so-called pro-choice people don't want people to choose. They don't want them to see the image of the baby growing within their womb so that they can then make it. No, they just want to push their agenda. So they're not for people. They're not for so-called health. They're not for choice, really. They've got an agenda, and that's what they're for. And this reminds me of that. So here's a situation where people who, because of their faith, perhaps, are not going to support or get a vaccine in which aborted tissue has been used. So why not tell them? See, this is the question. They obviously, from these emails, they don't want the public to know. They want to frame the conversation. They want to leave that out. And so I say, why? Now, for me, I think anybody who is a person of faith or a person who's pro-life wouldn't want anything to do with a vaccine that uses this. That's part of I'm not anti-vax. I think people are grown and they make decisions for themselves. I don't understand personally how someone who's pro-life is okay with a vaccine that uses fetal tissue. I will admit that, but that's really not my business. And that's the difference between me and some other people. I think that even though I don't get it, that's not my business what they choose to do for themselves and for their families and for their bodies. I mean, if that's okay with them, if they've got, whatever. I mean, people are grown. Do what you got to do. I really don't. I'm not getting into that for anybody else, but for me, So I'm that's not my issue. But my issue is, why are you hiding it? What is the agenda? We know there's an agenda. I've been saying that all along. There's an agenda. I'm sure money is tied to it, but unfortunately, I think more than that is tied to it. Money's enough and sick enough. If people would bypass a person's faith and their principles to push their thing, that's bad enough, for money's sake. But I just believe there's more to it. Why are they pushing so desperately? I mean, we're doing things and mandating things and that one would just never ever imagine, so that's bad enough. But then now we've got Pfizer, we've got these executives, these top people who specifically don't want us to know. We don't want that part of the conversation. If you care about people, if your motive is right, why hide it? What are you doing? What are they doing? Why are they so adamant about making sure everyone gets this vaccine just so that everybody is healthy? No, because it doesn't follow everything we're doing. We know we're not following the science about this stuff. We're not following the science about masks. We're not following the science about natural immunity. We're not following the science. We're pushing a vaccine. And in this case, we are purposely trying to keep people from knowing that they've used aborted cell. It's wrong. It's downright evil. And so I don't know if you've heard. I'm assuming you've heard about Melissa Strickler. I applaud her And that's the thing. We, the people, many of us are not willing to take a stand for anything. Anything they tell us to do about this, okay, we're just complying because we're so afraid of this or so afraid of that. And yet we've got someone here who's to blow the whistle on Pfizer, that says a lot. And many of us don't want to do jack. And this woman is willing to put it all out there. And my understanding is that she's since been fired, So I wanted to bring that to you. I want us to begin to think about what in the world is going on. It's not just because they love you, people. They're not just trying to, we got to get the vaccine because we just love everybody. No, because if that were the case, they would also be sharing with us the people who have had the adverse effects, the people who have died, and yet they are censoring the people who are speaking out. I mean, if you have had an adverse effect to this vaccine and they want to even censor you as if you don't know what you're talking about, there's an agenda. So go to projectveritas.com. Projectveritas.com. You can find the full interview there, as well as the other things that Project Veritas does. I cannot speak to everything Project Veritas does, but I do know that they've done some good things and exposed some things, and we need to know what's going on. Again, I'm not anti-vaccination. I believe people are grown and can do what they want. And if people are okay with the fact that there's aborted tissue used and still get the vaccine, and they're okay with that, that's them. I'm not passing, I'm not saying put the hammer down on them. I'm not saying they're not Christians. I'm not saying they're really not pro-life. I'm saying grown folks are grown folks, and grown folks can do what grown folks can do. What I'm also saying, however, which is the big point, is that people have a right to know, and then they can make a decision. And they're trying to keep that from us. And you've got to ask, why? What the heck is going on? We need to figure that out. And we need to say, hold up, back up. Something is going on here. Guys, we're living in some interesting times. And I say interesting for lack of a better adjective. Anyway, projectveritas.com. Check it out for yourself. Melissa Strickler, she was quality auditor with Pfizer. And mess is going on. And you know what? We're just getting started. God help us, as I say, to put the brakes on. Thank you for tuning in again to the Adrienne Ross Show, where we cover everything, as you can see, from A to Z. As I say, Adrienne is on it. We can't be put in a box, but this particular issue needed to be addressed, and I wanted to bring it to you. So thank you again. Go to adriennerosscom.com, and also you feel free to leave me an email at adriennerosscom@gmail.com. And go to the BMG Network, where we have other great podcasts at thebmgnetwork.com. Thank you so much. I'll catch you next time. And please leave me a review at Apple Podcasts. Leave a review, or even at Audible. God bless you abundantly. The Adrienne Ross Show was produced and edited in the BMG studio. The music was provided by Kevin MacLeod. Find more episodes of The Adrienne Ross Show at thebmgnetwork.com and major podcast platforms. Be sure to tune in regularly. You don't want to miss even one episode.